Well, it looks like things might get out of hand rather fast. In this video, we're going to be jumping down into the recent news of what has been going on in not only the crypto space, but also in the banking sector as well. There's a lot of things to kind of discuss in this video, lots of kind of thoughts and opinions that I will share. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. It is just my thoughts and opinions on what is going on right now in the space. If you do find this kind of content useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, guys, you are missing a trick. I do urge you guys to go ahead and join, linked in the description down below. It is the first place that we go to notify you of everything that is going on in the crypto space. So why not keep a finger on the pulse of crypto by joining us down in Discord? And if you are looking for a little bit more from the crypto space, then why not check out the Patreon services as well, also linked in the description down below. If you don't want to jump over to Patreon, why not just click the join button here on YouTube? Link your accounts up with our Discord server and your whole new world will open up to you guys. We offer a fantastic bunch of services for our members, so check it out if that's of interest to you. Okay, let's jump right down into this. There's a lot of things to kind of talk about. We're going to start off by taking a look at SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, right? They are, yeah, it's just an absolute shit show, if we're being honest, right? There's a bit of a disaster. Now, there's obviously urging the tech firms not to panic, all that kind of stuff. There's a run on banks, quite a heavy amount actually over in the States at the moment. There's a lot going on over there. And none of this stuff is terribly too surprising. We kind of saw this one when they were liquidating the bonds, and they were trying to kind of, pay back their initial losses essentially, and so a lot of this comes down to the interest rate hikes. Okay, so that's negatively impacting on bonds, and obviously the bank here was heavily focused on bonds, and well, that doesn't end too well. So they had to take a loss on the bonds, and then they were going to go ahead and do more shares to kind of cover that. Share pricing tanking. The whole thing's just an absolute shit show. So ultimately, this is a really interesting thing. I'm not going to go into the details of this one. I think that many people are probably already aware. I will link these articles into the description down below, so you can kind of go ahead and read them if you want to and get a better understanding as to exactly what is going on here. But very, very interesting kind of stuff. So the collapse on Friday, the largest bank failure since 2008 financial crisis. There's a lot of reasons behind it, lots of things to kind of think about, and learnings to be taken, all the kind of usual stuff. But there is a note to and a nod to why Bitcoin was created in the first place. It's for shit like this, ultimately. Now, this is not the only one. This is just the most recent. We've obviously seen Silvergate Bank, which we can see on their website here. Effective immediately, Silvergate Bank has made a risk-based decision to discontinue the Silvergate Exchange network. All other deposit-related services remain operational. But ultimately, yeah, another one to kind of go down. Now, there are some positives to kind of be taken out of some of this. So we do have this one. Elon Musk to buy Silicon Valley Bank as Bitcoin bounces back above 20K. Is Bitcoin and crypto market now safe? So that's kind of, one of those things. Now, this is kind of captioned with the title to kind of make you think one thing. If you actually scroll down, it's I'm open to the idea is all that really Elon Musk has said. It's like a choice of 5 words. So yeah, ultimately it's interesting. Bitcoin being above 20K, I think, is short term. It's nothing more than a bounce that has to happen. You can't go in one direction and one direction only. You have to have these little relief bounces as people try to catch a falling knife. But ultimately, yeah, we are looking at much further downside, in my humble opinion. Now, when we see here, would I like to see Elon Musk buying up Silicon Valley Bank? That could be absolutely fantastic, and also could be really opening himself up to a whole world of pain as well. Be interesting to kind of see. Now, following the shutdown of Silicon Valley Bank, a prominent tech founder has suggested that Twitter purchases the bank and turns it into a digital bank. Now, if that is the case, then what does that mean for Twitter? Does that mean that the bank will be not only a digital bank, but also kind of integrated with Twitter payments and crypto-friendly Twitter and all that kind of stuff? There's a lot of things to kind of consider there. Are we going to see Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, and all those meme coins, shit coins, kind of start to perform incredibly well? And obviously that's tongue in cheek. ultimately, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if Elon Musk does go ahead and try to buy Silicon Valley Bank. But at the same time, how much will the US actually allow? That's one thing. And obviously, being the world's richest man, to go ahead and do this again, and not only buy Twitter and buy several other companies, and you've got Tesla, you've got SpaceX, and a whole host of others, right? And to add a bank to that, Silicon Valley Bank, he's going to become very, very difficult to kind of compete with at certain levels. And I think that's going to also turn a lot of heads, right? And so it's one of those. I think it would be a good idea. It will be good to see someone actually take things in a digital way, as it's very much needed. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. Ultimately, it could put a target on his back, let's face it. Anyway, kind of moving on from this is a good piece. It'll be interesting to kind of see how that develops. If it does or does not, we don't know. I don't even know how truthful or factual this is, how much of a consideration it actually is, or anything of that kind of stuff. If anyone knows any more, let me know in the comments down below. So I think with all these kind of things going on, right, everything from Silicon Valley Bank through to Silvergate and Elon Musk, there's going to be some opportunities in the market. So if you haven't yet done so, why not check out 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏, linked in the description down below. They do some fantastic offers. So at the moment, they're running a cashback where you deposit 50 USDT and you'll get $10 USDT. There's also a whole host of rewards up to $8,000 as well via our link in the description down below. We are running some trading competitions down in our Discord server as well with 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏. And there's a weekly competition where you can earn and win potentially up to $100 per week. So go ahead and check that out as well and join us in Discord for more information. Now let's move on. And talking about more news outside of the opportunities that kind of do come from shorting the market at the right time, US regulators react to the Silvergate Bank collapse. Will the government cut off the crypto industry from the banking system? And I don't think the US regulators really have a good bead on on this anyway. Crypto is the way to save the world from this kind of shit that the banks keep getting themselves into. Ultimately, it's not really their fault per se. I mean, they were keeping their eyes not on the prize. Essentially, they were just going and getting greedy, looking at one thing, such as bonds. And obviously, the interest rate hikes that are going to continue to increase are going to have an impact on that. Now, don't get me wrong, with everything that's going on with these banks, and the bank collapsing is potentially going to create or force the Fed into not raising those rates as quickly as maybe is needed. And that means a prolonged scenario. So we won't really go into that just yet, but essentially, I think that whatever the Fed decide to do next is going to have a huge impact, not only on crypto, but also on the banking sector and kind of everyday people as well. Now here, there's two senators in the US that are basically asking or kind of hinting at tighter and stricter regulatory policy for crypto. Now, I think that's, the wrong angle to go down. I think there needs to be a framework, and I think there needs to be guidelines. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's been a cascading effect of kind of things that have occurred. Pretty much started in 2020, and here we are 3 years down the line. Dealing with the fallout of stupid policy of printing cash to deal with something that, well, we won't go there. Nonetheless, we've seen the results of printing so much cash and gifting it out to random people. Markets went up very significantly. Money flowed to incredibly wealthy individuals and stayed at the wealthy level, whereas poorer people got poorer. And not only is that happening, we're also seeing those poor individuals losing their jobs with the increased rate hikes, unemployment rate increasing, and all that usual stuff. The stuff that we talk about all the time on the channel. Now, I think increased regulations are required, but they don't need to be stricter. They just need to be, compliant. I think essentially what I mean by this is you need to create a framework and you need to create a regulatory policy that works. You don't need to be stricter on something that you just simply haven't been bothered to regulate in the first place, right? So to call for stricter measures means that you have some measure in the first place, but you simply do not. So the US need to first of all get measures put in place, analyze whether or not they need to make those stricter. At the moment, they've gone from 0 to 100, and they don't really know whether 50 would have been better, right? So they need to kind of actually create the framework, in my opinion, and they need to kind of test how that works. You can't just go from, basically non-moving to 100 miles an hour without kind of taking up a little bit of speed first, right? So I think there's a little bit of a learning here. I think the US regulators are, well, they're just not really with it. I think we need new blood. We need fresh, younger eyes in the space, because the politics when it comes to crypto is just a bunch of dinosaurs not really fully understanding the future and what is to come. They can try to delay it, which I do think they're trying to do, but I think eventually we will persevere. Bitcoin was created to prevent these problems from these legacy systems, and we will eventually get there. So all in all, it's a really interesting kind of thing, but all the US regulators are doing are pushing the innovation out of the country. They'll only hurt themselves in the long term. And again, just because a US regulator decides to act one way does not mean that the rest of the world will either. XRP is a clear case of this, where most countries have already kind of determined that XRP is not a security. It is either an exchange token or a currency, whereas the US seem to be so backwards and not really with the times that they think it's a security. So you can see that many other countries don't really look to the US policies and regulations and think, yes, that's a great idea, we're going to follow their lead. Most countries are actually kind of persevering and kind of moving in their own direction. So yeah, there's a lot of things to kind of take from the US and a lot of things that the US can take from the rest of the world as well. And so kind of one of those. Let's move on. And the big kind of news of everything that's been going on is the USDC depeg. So this is a pretty big issue, but I think it's really just the typical kind of retail investor panicking and not really understanding exactly what is going on here. They're thinking USDT when they start thinking depeg, right? And there's actually a different scenario occurring here. So with USDC, I can't seem to get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. We don't want that. So USDC here, basically they've got $3.3 billion in SVB. Okay, so in Silicon Valley Bank, they have exposure of about $3.3 billion. Now, $3.3 billion of the $40 billion worth of USDC backed one-to-one with, right? And now the other stuff is in, I believe, bonds, I can't remember. And that is on short term. So I don't think that's a huge issue, but we'll see how things kind of develop with that. So what you see, the main headlines and the kind of the fear that's seeping into the space is that basically USDC and Circle, the company behind it, is in SVB, right? And basically that's the headline. The headline is that basically USDC is screwed because all the funds are in SVB, and that's not necessarily true. It's 3.3 billion out of 40 billion, so it is a small slice of the pie. With that being said, I think there is, of course, an element of how much of this is actually to risk when it comes to SVB. So I think it's actually only a fraction of this that would potentially be at risk as well. So it's not even a full 3.3 billion. I think it comes out at like 600 million approximately, if my memory serves me right, that's actually at risk with SVB. So it's one of those things. We can't just blindly believe that SVB is going to completely collapse, and as a result of that, USDC will collapse as well. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't the problem. This part here is it's annoying, it's frustrating, and it's a small hole to plug. But the bigger problem is the panic that comes from it, because here you then see a mass withdrawal effect, right? You start seeing people panic coming out of USDC for DAI and other cryptocurrencies. And then you can start to see here DAI USDC depegging as stablecoin pressure continues, right? And then, of course, Binance suspends USDC conversions. So you have Coinbase suspending USDC conversions, and that compounds the issue even further. Okay, so basically this contagion from SVB basically also includes some of the other companies in the space as well. BlockFi, for example, have exposure to SVB. Circle have exposure to SVB with their 3.3 billion. Avalanche has some exposure with SVB, right? So you've got to understand that there is a knock-on effect of people who have funds with SVB in the same way that it had with Silvergate Bank, right? A lot of these bankrupt companies, and they're going through these bankruptcy hearings, and the funds are in companies like in bank accounts where the banks are now going through that insolvent process and basically liquidation process. That means that even those companies that have already gone bankrupt and going through that liquidation process now are going to also receive less of the funds that they thought they had in the first place. So there's a huge knock-on effect here, and it kind of compounds down all the way to the very granular level. So there's a lot of things to kind of consider. I'm not going to go through all of this. Again, I will link it in the description down below. Personally, I think that USDC will be okay in the end. But there's going to be a lot of panic selling to start with. There's going to be lots of money lost through SVB and through panic selling, because people are going to be selling at a loss because, you know, it's no longer stable. It's no longer to the peg, right? So you're going to see a lot of that occurring as well. Now, there's also some more issues outside of just the ones that I've mentioned here, because if I come over to the next one, we can see that 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗪 files for an emergency proposal addressing 3.1 billion USDC exposure. Okay, so this then becomes, okay, well, maybe you're not in SVB. Maybe you've avoided Silvergate, right? But maybe you're holding USDC, and they're in, you know, going to be in discussions and addressing the $3.1 billion exposure that they have to USDC. Now, like I said, I think USDC is going to be okay, but there's going to be this moment where people are going to be looking at this as a risk assessment, and they're going to be looking at it and say, okay, do I take my 10% hit now just in case, and then they sell their USDC, compounding the issue even further, and so forth, right? So there's a huge contagion here that is going to span pretty much most projects out there. MakerDAO is no exception to this one. Okay, $3.1 billion of exposure here. Now, obviously, there's opportunities. As I said, if you're looking for trading and things like that, and trading opportunities when it comes to everything that's going on right now, then why not check out 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗪? Link is in the description down below. As I said, they've got the cashback, deposit 50 USDT, get $10 USDT, and all the way up here to $8,000. There's a whole host of different ways of getting rewards as well. So if you haven't already signed up, check that out down below, because when it comes to trading opportunities, you can see that there's a short squeeze opportunity here on BTC to USDC pair. As USDC has become unstable and depegged, it means you now need more USDC to buy Bitcoin, right? So if you're looking at, okay, if you're confident that maybe USDC is going to recover, then Bitcoin should be snapping back down to its actual price compared to USD or USDT. That means that actually there's a huge short opportunity to potentially occur here with USDC Bitcoin pair. And if you're going to short that via, you know, using leverage on something like BitGet, Bybit, or whatever, right? And there's going to be a potential opportunity to kind of milk that market a little bit. Now, this becomes incredibly high risk, which is why I say it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not something that I'm going to be doing. You could, of course, if you're looking at thinking USDC is going to do well and maybe bounce back, just buying up cheap USDC and earn yourself 10%, for example. Alternatively, you could look at this and think everything that is paired with a USDC right now is overvalued, and you could arguably start shorting the market all over the place and squeeze the hell out of the market as it starts to snap back into form. The timing that is, however, going to be incredibly difficult. Could happen very quickly, could take quite some time to get back to peg. I'll leave that for you guys to kind of think about and to try to decide. Ultimately here, you can see that Bitcoin's price has spiked up to $26,000 when you're using that USDC pair, whereas on USDT or USD, you don't see any of that, right? This is because it's a volatile asset. This is no longer stable, right? You can't look at USDC and think it's a stable asset right now. So it's a volatile one. Volatility assets compared to each other basically allows for these kind of opportunities. So yeah, I'll leave it that one right there with you guys. If you're kind of thinking about how you might want to benefit from everything that is going on right now, then that is one way of kind of looking at it. But again, it's not something I would be doing. I think would consider that incredibly high risk, but it is, of course, an option that I think some people out in the space will be taking advantage of. I'm going to leave the video there, though, guys. If you found this useful, informative, smash that like button. I'll leave links to everything down in the comments below or in the description down below. So get your thoughts and opinions in the comments and catch up with all of these articles on what is going on in the crypto space. And I'll catch you all in the next one.